The Vatican is making their final preparations for Pope Francis's funeral. Today is the last day for mourners to view the pontiff's body. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday at the age of 88 following a stroke, and he's been lying in state since Wednesday at St. Peter's Basilica. And you can see live picture on your screen there. Thousands of faithful lining multiple blocks to pay their final respects. The Pope's body will lie in state in the church until this evening, when his coffin will be sealed during a liturgical rite ahead of the mass funeral tomorrow. By the way, Newzroom will be carrying that funeral service live, and I will be co-anchoring along with a number of important guests who will explain to us some of the rituals involved with this final milestone on his journey. This is Pope Francis. We'll reflect on what we can expect tomorrow at the Vatican City and some of those rituals and their significance with the Catholic Archdiocese of Johannesburg. This is Father Phuti Makgabo. Father Makgabo, thank you for your time. Again, we've expressed our condolences to everyone who's been affected, who knew Pope Francis, certainly felt the influence of his work and his service over these many years. So we will start off with that, and thank you very much for being with us. We've been talking about these rituals, and it's been a wonderful education opportunity into the cultures and the subcultures associated with the Catholic Church. One of the big events today is the sealing of the coffin, and we understand that this will be presided over by Cardinal Camerlengo Kevin Farrell. We've explained to our viewers earlier this week, it was the Camerlengo who is the person who stands in the space between the passing of one pope and another. In this case, it is him, and that it's an important responsibility that he bears, and this sealing of the coffin will be presided over by him. Why is it such an important and significant moment?
Thank you very much, Iman, and greetings to the viewers. I think what we need to explain here is, firstly, the fact that the sealing of the coffin itself has changed a little bit. It has been simplified. And I think for people to be able to understand what used to happen, it would be useful to them, because the coffins of the popes used to be sealed 3 times. They would be sealed with the cypress coffin, then the lead coffin, then the elm coffin or the oak coffin, depending what kind of wood they find for the 3rd sealing. So what used to happen, tomorrow you won't be seeing all these sealings. It will be just a simple sealing because the Pope asked that it be made simple. So what used to happen is that they would first put the body in the cypress coffin. So this is the innermost coffin. So it's not just a coffin, because there are things that used to be put in that coffin. So it would hold the Pope's body, obviously, as well as the eulogy given at the funeral mass. And then it would hold also 3 bags of coins, one in the silver ones, the golden ones, and the copper ones. So it used actually to amount to the number of years that would represent the number of years that the Pope has been in charge of the Catholic Church. So the simple wooden coffin actually was made also to express or to signify that the Pope is an ordinary human being like everyone else, and is buried like a common man. So the coffin is sealed and wrapped with the silk ribbons before being placed in a lead casket. Then in the lead casket, it will be sort of soldered in and engraved with the Pope's name and the date of his pontificate. And then they would put also the skull and the crossbones. So for South Africans to understand how the skull and the crossbones would work, I think you would need to go and ask the fans of Orlando Pirates. They will explain it much better there. So it is that form.
Yeah, some might say that's... Some might say, Father, that's heresy what you've just done, bringing up Orlando Pirates when you know that there's so much contestation about our favorite teams in the country. But we lost your audio there, and I want to pick up, after being wrapped with silk ribbons and then engraved with the Pope's seal and his pontificate, You talked about the skull and the crossbones. Just pick up the story from there.
Yes, I was saying that then on this on the lead coffin, then they would put a skull and the crossbones. As I was saying, speaking about Orlando Pirates, that for us South Africans would be easy to understand if you speak about the symbols of Orlando Pirates. I know that the Chiefs fans and Sundowns fans would probably kill me because I'm not mentioning them, but is a symbol of death. The design originates in the late Middle Ages, actually, as a symbol of death. And many people are familiar with that symbol of death. And you will find those symbols actually on many tombs. So it is usually actually been represented by what we call the term called memento mori. Remember that you will die. So Catholics will be familiar with something like that on Ash Wednesdays. When they receive the ashes, they are told, remember that you are ash, and to ash, or your dust, or to dust you shall return. So it's just a reminder of that as well, that we are dust and we shall return to dust someday. So the practical part of this, Iman, is that the lead coffin is more durable, and that's why they would put a metal like that. So with that, the important documents of the Pope, the ones that he issued under his pontificate, are then put there as well in that coffin. Also with what they used to do with the seal of the Pope. After his death, they would break that seal and then they would put it inside as well with those documents that he issued. The last one would be the elm coffin, or rather the oak coffin, whatever they find. And then this will be the one where they will nail it and shut it with golden nails. And then the elm coffin is actually used to signify basically the great dignity of the man being laid to rest. This man, as we call him in the Catholic Church, he is the vicar of Christ. That is his dignity, even though many of us will still know him as the Bishop of Rome, but he's also the vicar of Christ. So that's why they would bury him with something as precious as the elm wood or the oak one.
Yeah.
So that would be the last seal of the coffin.
Father, I mean, that is fascinating, really, really fascinating that you have these stages in the way that his remains are ultimately interred. But just a question, so we did mention that the Pope wanted to be, or Pope Francis wanted to simplify the process. He's also going to be buried at Santa Maria Maggiore, which is, which was, obviously he resonated a lot as well with the personage of Mother Mary. But he's going to be buried outside of the Vatican. Now, given that you've just told us 3 bags of coins, silver, gold, and copper, the final sealing of the oak or the elm coffin will be with gold nails. What kind of risks are there to his choice and safeguarding and keeping his coffin protected?
Well, the coffin will always be protected in the sense that, you see, the casket does not remain outside. So they are still going to be put inside, they're going to be buried. And then because they are in the church, I mean, he's not the first person, actually, the first Pope to be buried there. There are about 6 popes now. He would probably be the 7th Pope, even though the last one buried there was probably in the 12th century. So there are popes who are buried there at the Basilica of Mary Major. So even if it's going to be a simple coffin, it's not easily accessible. So it will still be buried as other are buried there. So for the funeral, basically, people will be seeing the ordinary liturgical mass for the funeral as they would normally witness them in their own parishes or in Catholic churches. The only difference they're going to see, those who only go to the mass in a Catholic church, they would see that at the end of the celebration of the mass, there is another rite that is added at the end of the mass before they say their goodbyes, which will be the final farewell. Then after that, the final farewell, and then the body will then be taken into the Basilica of St. Peter for the last time. That's what we've been told. And then from there, the body will be carried to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where the burial will take place. So those are just the minor differences that people will see. Other than that, what they're going to witness tomorrow at the Holy Mass is going to be the ordinary Mass that they know, except the fact that the coffin will be there. What would be interesting, though, is that they will be reading from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 21, which will resonate a lot with those who know what is the role of the Pope. So this is where the Gospel, where Jesus is asking Peter, do you love me? And then he says to Peter, look after my sheep, tend my sheep, tend my lamb. So that is just to signify to people what this person was. And that's why they will be reading from that Gospel to remind people that the Pope is the successor of St. Peter.
Yeah.